Hi, and thank you for your interest in the IVF Australia sperm donation program. My name's Melissa and I'm one of the fertility counsellors, and today I'm going to go through a short presentation just to outline things that you might like to consider to decide if the program's right for you. So the topics we'll cover today are firstly, who can be a sperm donor, the process that's involved for you, the legal framework that we need to be mindful of, implications counselling and what that involves, emotional things that you might like to consider for the future, and importantly, what are the rights of the child who's born from your donation. So firstly, who can be a sperm donor? So healthy men aged between 21 and 45 years old are able to be donors. We need people to have good physical, general health and also no significant mental health problems. Sometimes donors come forward who've had a history of anxiety or depression and it's now well managed. So we can take them onto the donor program. You just need to be sure that you've told the doctor or the counsellor of previous conditions. There needs to be minimal risk of any genetic conditions and also no serious criminal record. So what's the process that you have to go through to be a donor? Firstly, we ask you to have a consult with one of our fertility specialists. It takes about 15 to 20 minutes and they sit down with you and get a full medical history. That can either be done in person or it could be a telehealth consult. Then we ask you to do some screening blood tests. So we screen for infectious conditions like hepatitis, HIV, and we screen for common genetic conditions, things like cystic fibrosis, thalassemia, muscular dystrophy. And we also screen for some recessive genetic conditions that affect childhood development. We also get you to do a semen analysis where they decide if your sperm is suitable for donation. And once we've got all the results back from those tests, we'll be able to give you the information so you know where things are up to with your health. We do 2 implications counselling sessions, and I'll go into detail about what's covered in those a little further on. Usually the first session takes about an hour and the second session is quite a bit briefer, just to follow up to see if you have any questions. So following that part of the process, we then get you to leave your donation. So that means that you need to come into the lab usually between 6 and 10 times. So at the first appointment, the andrology staff will let you know how many appointments you'll need to make. You can go into the lab at a time that suits you, and we've got labs all over Sydney, so you can go to the one that's the closest to you, to either home or work. When you've completed making your donations, we then quarantine the sperm for 3 months. At the end of that 3-month period, we'll get in touch with you and we'll ask you to come in for another blood test. And that's just a repeat of the infectious conditions to make sure everything's fine. And following that, we can then use the sperm and it's available for recipients. We'll also ask you to do a little bit of paperwork. So we get you to complete a profile, which gives information about yourself. And there's some consent forms that you have to complete also. Okay. So the legal framework. So in Australia, it's actually illegal to pay for any kind of donation, whether it be blood, organs, tissues. So donation has to be an altruistic gift. We are able to do a very small reimbursement for things like travel expenses and parking. New South Wales legislation limits donors to creating 5 families, and that would include their own. So if you have a family already, or if you have plans down the track to have your own children, that would be 1 family. So we would only create 4 families in the clinic. This also means that you wouldn't be able to donate at any other clinic or donate as a known donor to friends. If you think that's something you might like to do, let us know and we would reduce the number of families that you would be able to create. All our donors must consent that they're happy to go onto the New South Wales Central ART Donor Register. This is a closed register managed by the New South Wales Health Department. And once the children turn 18, they're allowed to get your identifying information, so they could then make contact with you if they choose to. At this stage, the register is one way, so the young person can contact the donor, but the donor cannot contact the young person. Donors have no parenting rights and no legal responsibility for the children. It'll be the recipient's names on the birth certificate. So the implications counselling, what does this involve? I guess that we like to bring up things that you might like to consider about the future. If you have a partner, they must attend these sessions with you. It's important that they're also on board, because I guess it can affect them down the track. And also if you have children together, potentially, it can affect your children. So the things we talk about is just general background information about yourself. So your social history, your family, and your psychological and health history. We explore how long you've been thinking about donating, what made you think it might be the right thing for you to do. And we also spend quite a bit of time considering, what impact will it have for you in the future and your partner, and if you have children or other family members. So you're thinking about, how will you feel in 18 years' time if the young person does make contact with you, or if they don't make contact with you, how will you feel? Knowing that there's children out there that you have a genetic connection to, but you've never been able to meet or have any contact with. What are some important things that we would like you to consider? We have different groups of people accessing our donor sperm program. So about 50% of the people using the program now are single women. We also have same-sex female couples and heterosexual couples. You might be happy to donate to all groups, or you might have preferences to donate to only certain groups. We also ask how many families you would like to create. Like I mentioned earlier, the maximum is 5. But if you're thinking, you definitely know you won't have your own children, or you're thinking you might have a friend you'd like to donate to, you might like to vary the number of families that you consent to. I guess knowing that this is a lifetime commitment. So once treatment has occurred and embryos are created, you have no further consent over what happens to those embryos. And children can be created and you can't change your mind at that point. So being mindful of that. And how do you feel about future contact from a young person? They might have a whole variety of questions to ask you. I guess most of the young people that I've seen, that they know that they have parents and a family at home, and they're not looking for that kind of connection with a donor. They're looking more for information and, facts about their identity. So they might want a bit more medical history. They might want to know what the donor looks like, all that kind of thing. So they're the main reasons that young people reach out. So once a donor conceived young person is 18, they have the right to obtain identifying information on their donor, which means they will get contact details, your full name, date of birth, that kind of thing. It is quite likely that young people will reach out. We encourage recipients to be very open with their children from a young age about where they came from. So most of our recipients probably start telling their children the story when they're preschool age, so aged about 3 or 4. And generally they start off with a very simple story. Things like, mummy really wanted to have a baby and she couldn't do it by herself, so a kind man called a donor helped her. So it would be, they would always be referring to the donor as the donor, not as a dad or a genetic parent or anything like that. It's very much language based around the donor. The fact that children grow up knowing that information, I guess, makes it more likely that they will seek out the donor when they're older. We do have a program called Donor Siblings. So what happens with that is offspring that are created using the same donor can link up at any age. So if if the child or the parents are interested, they can register their email address, and any other child that's come forward that's been created using the same donor can meet. We can link them together. I guess what that means for donors is, you know, if children are in families of different ages and the oldest but one has reached 18 but the youngest one hasn't yet, if they're in contact, they're probably quite likely to share that information. Young people can look for their donor, but the donor can't look for the offspring. So we can tell you how many babies have been born from your donation and their gender and year of birth. But that's all the information that we can provide. So when you've completed making your donation and we're allowed to use the sperm, we get you to do a donor profile. And that covers a lot of information about you. So just general stuff, you know, your year and country of birth and ethnic origin. Physical characteristics like eye and hair colour and height. A little bit about your background, so education, type of work you do, hobbies and interests, comments about your personality. We ask you to provide us with a photo of you as, you know, a toddler or a preschooler, so potential recipients can get a bit of a feel for what you look like. With your donor profile, we put it up on our website with all our other available donors, and the recipients go through and they choose the donor that most suits them. And they choose on a whole lot of different things. And one of the most important things that they look at is, I guess, your reasons for donating. So towards the back of the form, there's the opportunity for you to write a page about, you know, why you're donating or a potential message from a donor offspring. And I guess you can just think about what that might be like. And a lot of recipients have told me it's that helps them decide, because I guess that's the only thing that give a bit of a feel for your personality. They also get all the genetic and medical health information that we've collected from you. So, yeah, we have to disclose any information that you've given us, and that's then passed on to the recipients. Hopefully this presentation has given you a bit of a background and a few things to think about. If you have any questions or concerns, or you'd like a bit more information, you can contact our donor support team. Otherwise, there's opportunity if you proceed to talk about these things in much more detail in the counselling sessions, or ask questions of your doctor when you see them. Thanks again for your time and your interest in the program, and I hope this has been helpful.